Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
Welcome to Hong Kong Confidential. I'm Jules Hannaford and I'm your host. I'm an Australian woman and I've been living in Hong Kong for many years. I'm a mother, a teacher, an author, and I want to share my wisdom and the wisdom of others with you. Thanks for joining me and I hope you enjoy the show.
You meet someone online and there's this instant connection. It's amazing how much the two of you just seem to click. They live somewhere far away and there's some plausible reason they can't travel to meet you. They tell you they're in love with you and you feel optimistic for the first time in a long time. They have a successful career, yet somehow they need money from you to solve a short-term problem, always with the promise of paying you back. Time goes on and they need more money more urgently. You've started to see the cracks and begin to wonder whether they've been lying this whole time. All of a sudden it hits you. You've been scammed. Fool Me Twice is the story of my mother, Jules Hannaford, a woman who was drawn into the dangerous world of sweetheart scams. After a trip overseas to meet a stranger, a dangerous altercation in a Manchester hotel room, and thousands of pounds lost for good, she's here to tell her story. Fool Me Twice, a true crime podcast, is available on Apple Podcasts, Ozcast Network, and anywhere you listen to your podcasts.
Today I'm here with Natalie Goni. Hi Natalie, thank you for joining me today.
Hi Jules, it's a pleasure to be here.
So exciting to have you here
I
to talk about
know.
your work as a coach, given that you were my coach. How many years ago now? 3.
It was nearly three
Nearly
years
3
ago.
years ago, yeah. I've just turned my life around in 4 fast sessions. Yeah, it was amazing. Tell me a bit about what sort of work you do as a coach.
I always find this question actually strangely quite difficult because it's so unique depending on the individual. But the work I do essentially, if I were to kind of really distill it down to maybe a sentence, would be that I work with people to connect to their whole self in order to live and lead a life that is fulfilling and whole for them.
There you go. That makes complete sense.
Oh, I'm glad.
Yeah, that's great. I did a coaching course through my work a couple of years ago and we used the GROW method. Do you use any sort of particular method or do you use a variety depending on your client?
Yeah, this is the really interesting thing about coaching is there's lots of different approaches and many coaches have a specific method or a certain way of approaching coaching with their clients. I don't have a method per se, and why that's the case is because my approach and my value when it comes to coaching and the value that I hold is that it's about the human in front of me first and foremost. I mean, methods can be very effective, they certainly are. But if that was at the forefront of the way I worked, it would be more about the method than about the human.
So is it more about making a connection and then sort of following your intuition?
It is. However, saying that, I am trained in a number of different modalities and approaches. And I guess some of the key approaches that I will bring into my coaching is the more traditional leadership development and organizational coaching, which is what I was originally trained in. And I'm also a trained systemic coach. So I'll bring in systemic orientated practices and viewing certain challenges and things from a systemic perspective.
Can you explain to me what that means? Sorry, I don't know.
Yeah, I know. It can mean anything, right? If you don't know. So systemic orientated coaching is based on the work of a guy called Bert Hellinger, who actually recently passed away. You may have heard of family constellations.
Yes, I have.
Yeah, so it's actually based on the work of family constellations. And there's a number of people, including my teacher, John Whittington, who's based in the UK, who further evolved Bert work and brought systemic orientated work and constellations into the organizational perspective,
Right,
organizational context.
Oh, okay.
So systems essentially is based on, we are all in systems. Our family of origin is the original system that we came from.
And then we evolve into other systems as we join work or different cultures, groups.
Cultures.
Yeah, like
absolutely.
That.
And we carry all of that. So John always talks about the peacock tail behind us. On the peacock tail, there's the little circles, and they kind of represent the different systems that we carry with us wherever we go, into relationships, into work, into how we approach teaching, all of those things.
And then once we sort of recognize, then we can start to make adjustments or look at the way that we're doing things positively and negatively and try and sort of recognize old patterns and change behaviors and things like that. Is that right?
Yes, that, and it's also understanding that there will be dynamics going on in the field that may be hidden because there is energy at play all the time in different systems. So in our family systems, there's kind of things at play depending on where people's place is within the family system. And there's certain principles within systems that allow systems to kind of flow with ease. And they are time, place, and exchange. So not to get kind of too technical, but yes, it's about the individual, but it's also about what's at play that you might not even be aware of.
Conscious understanding of.
Or part of, exactly. Yeah. But you can still work with that and do things yourself in order to help the healthy flow of a system.
Oh, that sounds so fantastic. Yeah, that's great. It's How really interesting. Have you always been a coach? You were in a different field, weren't you? How did you come into coaching?
So I've been working with people for the last kind of 17, 18 years. And I started out actually in recruitment, funnily enough, back in the late 90s. And from recruitment, I then went into HR, into human resources. And I did a number of different roles within human resources back in the UK. And then I went into learning and talent development and leadership development from the HR route.
And then you decided to leave that and become a coach? Or was it that segue into talent development just led you naturally into this path kind of thing?
Yeah, it did. The essence of what I do and what I love is working with human beings to help them grow, to move through life with ease. And that's what I really loved when I was working in development and leadership development in, quote unquote, the corporate world. And for many different reasons, but I was with my former company for 11 years. So it was a long time. And I was kind of at this junction of, do I stay and become a lifer, or do I take the risk to really branch out on my own and concentrate fully on what I love to do and what I know I'm good at?
And how was it making that decision to take that risk? Was it scary? Did you feel sort of panicked about the future and finances and security, or did you just throw caution to the wind and go for it? Or a bit of both?
It was definitely a bit of both. I mean, it was definitely a process. I think often these stories of leaving a long-time job or career to start something new is often painted as, waking up one day and making the decision. But it was a process over about a year. And I was very emotionally invested in the company that I worked for previously and loved it and really passionate about my work. And then when that started to fade a little bit, I started to really question what were my values and what was my purpose. And I couldn't quite figure out if I was just tired and needed a break or whether there was something deeper. So I actually went on a sabbatical, and my company were very gracious in giving me a sabbatical. Cheesy eat, pray, love.
Oh, brilliant. I'm so jealous. I would love to do that.
I went to Bali. I did a yoga retreat, and I really invested in myself. I did lots of different courses and really went on a journey of self-exploration and decided that it was time to make that leap. And one of the things I remember saying and feeling at the time was, what I need to learn, I wasn't going to learn it continuing in that role or in that situation or setting. And I didn't quite know what I needed to learn back then, but I just had this feeling that what I needed to learn was outside of the firm.
How important do you think it is to recognize your values and what's most important to you to be able to make that decision, to make that change?
Hugely important. I think that often where a lot of people get stuck and have that feeling of stuckness is that there's this sense that we need to make these decisions from the mind. And often our values don't kind of come from the mind, they come from ingrained feeling of who we are or the things that we've learned or important to us through our life experiences. And so knowing our values is definitely a huge part of being able to know how we make a decision based on what's important to us.
Is that something that you do with your clients, is look at values and what's most important, because it can then help them to work out which path they're on?
Absolutely. It's one of the key things that we talk about. And it's surprising actually that how often people haven't explored that.
Like just thinking now, I'm thinking, what are my values?
Yeah.
Teaching, helping others, giving back to the community, family. I don't know. It's interesting. It's something I'd have to really think about it to think what's most important to me. Security, definitely, because I've been in this job for I think it's 31 years. Do you know what I mean? I've never had a break from teaching. So I think security is very important to me as a single mum. It's interesting, isn't it?
Structure.
Yes, definitely structure and routine. I'm not good with change.
So there's a reason, right, that you work well and you thrive in the kind of educational environment, because it's got the structure and the security that this environment gives you. And often people, like you say, we don't take the time out to think about these things. And so...
But I'd like something a little bit more exotic for my values than structure.
Like what?
Well,
what are you thinking?
Pursuit of happiness or love, or I don't know.
But this is the thing, is that we often
taking risks, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, or adventure.
Yeah, adventure, things like that. Yeah.
Exactly. Sensuality.
Yeah, that's what I want. Not structure and routine.
Well, this is the thing, in that we think we should be a certain way, but actually what's really driving us and what makes us feel fulfilled and settled and at ease or whole or whatever it may be, sometimes are the really
practical,
unsexy or practical things. And it's knowing that really helps you understand what drives your behavior, the good and the bad, or I say bad, but the things that serve you and the things that don't serve you, because the values inform both.
Yeah, and when you know that, you can almost see where it comes from. I can see that structure comes from my family and the family values that were given to me about saving money and making sure that you're in a good position and all of that. So interesting. What sort of clients would typically come to see you? What sort of people come for coaching?
I have quite a mixture.
Is there an age range? Do you have corporates and people from all different walks of life? Or is it typically people in their 40s and 50s who are sort of going through that sort of change of transitioning into looking for something more because their kids are leaving? Or
I have both and all. I would say probably more women.
I was going to ask
men.
that, yeah.
And I think that, on a very quick hypothesis, but I think men tend to approach something like coaching when they've got a problem. They've hit a point where they're like, right, I really need some help. Whereas women, I think, are much more open to, there's something that doesn't quite feel right or something that's not flowing in my life. So I want to connect with someone that can support me.
There's a little bit more interest in personal growth, perhaps.
Yeah, and wanting to understand feelings and emotions, or why something isn't flowing a certain way, or there's definitely a different emphasis.
What would you say the difference is between counselling and coaching?
This is a really complex and interesting question, actually. So I've never actually had counselling. I've had therapy before, and I think therapy and counselling are quite similar.
I've had counselling. And I did a counselling course for a year, and I've done the coaching course. So I think it's very different about open-ended questions and leading the person somewhere and trying to help them establish how they can fix their problem, and sort of more structured.
Which,
and I think,
the coaching?
No, the counselling. And I think the coaching is more free flow. And I think from a client point of view, counselling seems to be linked with something is wrong with you, whereas coaching seems to be linked with moving forward and embracing change. I don't know if that's how other people see it, but I think that's how I perceive it.
I think you're right. And counselling is seen as something that you go to when you've got an emotional problem or something that you really need support with. Whereas coaching in a simplistic terms is about more forward focused.
Yeah, and I think there's a place for both, and both can be great. It's just what's
Absolutely.
right for you and what you need at the time. And I think there can be value. And to be fair, often it's just connecting with the right person.
It really
Isn't it?
is. And also there's such a diverse range of coaches and approaching to coaching. And coaching is a bit perhaps nebulous in its terminology. I'm really passionate about the fact that we're at a time where we need support and guidance, and not just when there's a problem.
Do you mean because we're in Hong Kong with the protests and the virus? Do you mean that specifically?
Well,
or do you mean more of a global situation?
both. But when I said that, I definitely was more globally in terms of the need for self-awareness, the need for deeper connection to self, the need for more meaning and purpose and consciousness for us as humans.
And why is that important? Because we need to save ourselves and the planet.
Yeah.
It is, isn't it? Because we're getting more and more stress. There's more and more pressure. We've got to be able to manage and cope with that. And we've got to be aware of the environment and the planet and what's happening in the world, our place in it, and how we can contribute to sustainability and things like that. So almost self-sustainability and sustainability of the world, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Oh, I love that.
I know.
You can use that.
I'm just going to say, I'm going to borrow that, Jules, and put it on my website.
You can. That's so interesting. We are in a time where it's becoming more acceptable to self-reflect and to look at yourself and to try and make changes, rather than that just soldier on, put it behind you, move forward and work, eat, play, sleep. That's it. Do you know what I mean? So the culture in society is changing, where personal development, well-being and mindfulness are all becoming keywords and key things that are being taught in schools, and something that we really need to address. And I guess that's where you come in, isn't it? You're helping with all of those things.
Absolutely. And I think what we're understanding now more broadly is the interconnectivity of things. So I think previously and I say we as a human race perhaps, we separated these different issues. So whether it be climate change, business, social inequity, mental health, the food system, those things were all separate things. And I think what we're understanding now is the interconnectivity of all of those things.
It's like the mind, body, soul connection as well, and the brain gut connection and all of that.
Yeah.
It is. So really, this change is all about interconnectivity as well. You can put that on your website too if you want. Yes, that is so profound, really, isn't it?
And like you say, I think up until the last probably even 5-10 years, the purpose in many people's life was find someone to love, get married, have a family, have a nice house, and build that security for the family. And that is important still too.
But it's a kind of simplistic approach to life, isn't it? It's really the nuts and bolts rather than everything around it.
I think it was important for a few generations ago, because you could look back and think about the boomer generation coming out of the Second World War and what was important back then. And then you went through the 80s and the 90s, and it was all about making money and material things and global travel. And we were like, wow, we've got all this possibility and wealth. And I think we're now coming into an age where understanding our place in the world's ecosystem and understanding what impact we have, and again, our values and purpose and meaning is really important, not just for, like you said, the environment and sustainability, but also for our own health, our own mind, body, spirit health, our connection to something bigger than ourselves.
That's beautiful. What have you learnt about yourself through this role of helping others?
I'm on a continuous path of growth and self-discovery. And
does this role help you with that?
Massively. And it's one of my core values. And so the work that I do is, obviously it's all interconnected, but it drives one of my key values. And the people I work with and how I show up and how they show up is a constant reflection to me of humanity and learning and my own unconscious patterns and strengths and tripwires. So it's a constant learning journey, but I also am constantly learning about my own self in order so that I can show up for the people I work with in a way that serves them and I'm not getting in the way.
Are you finding in this time in Hong Kong at the moment that you're getting more work because people are more stressed and worried, or do you have less work because people are sort of isolated and staying home and staying away from public places because of the virus?
I haven't seen a direct kind of an immediate response or difference based on what's been happening in the last few weeks. It's been quite similar to, nothing's changed per se, but I've definitely seen over the last year an increased desire for people that want to go on that kind of self-discovery journey and find more meaning.
That's interesting in a sort of time of turmoil in Hong Kong that people are choosing to do that. I think that is very interesting. It's been a difficult year, well, last year and this year. You're running a retreat in Bali called Reground and Reignite. Tell me a bit more about it. It looks amazing. I so wish I could come. I really would come if it was in holidays.
I so wish you could come too. I would so love you to be there.
Oh, it'd be great.
Yeah, it's out of the school holidays, isn't it? In terms of a bit of background, I'm running a retreat centre in Ubud in Bali called One World Retreats. And they've been in Bali now for the last nearly 20 years. They have a retreat centre. I don't know what to call it. Centre sounds so kind of...
Villa.
Yeah, villa, shala. And they have an Ayurvedic retreat place in the hills in Ubud as well. So this is at the retreat centre. When I mentioned earlier about my going off on a sabbatical and doing my kind of eat, pray, love thing, I went to one of their retreats at the time. It was called Developing Your Yoga Practice. And it was the first time I'd been to Bali on my own. It was just such a beautiful experience. Because they're so professional, I was very held, very supported. And it really helped me go a little bit deeper in terms of where I was at and what was needed and some of the things that were important to me.
What were some of the things you did on that retreat? Was it like yoga, meditation, good food, therapy?
That particular retreat, it was a little bit more focused on yoga. So at the time I was doing a yoga teacher training and I was quite into yoga more deeply back then. And so it was daily yoga, meditation, just beautiful, nourishing food. We had a day of silence, which I'd never done before.
Oh, I have done one once. I did a mindfulness training course.
Yeah.
And we had a day of silence. Really hard. Actually, easier than I thought it would be.
The thought of it is more confronting than it actually is.
I agree.
And I went to see a Balinese healer and just being in a supportive environment. And I had a beautiful room with a balcony overlooking the rice paddies and the jungle, and woken up every day at 6:30 and go to yoga. And I was able to just unfold a bit. And because all they do there is retreats, so it's purely set up for retreats. And it was just such a beautiful experience. I got to know the owner, Claude, and his partner, Ian, quite well. Then I went back again to a retreat that they were running called Follow Your Dreams. And I dragged my husband along this time. And then last year I did a Panchakarma, which is an Ayurvedic detox retreat with them. So I've been to a few retreats with them. And I've also interviewed Claude, the co-founder, on my interview series called The Ambitious and Unconventional. So I have a relationship with them. And last year, they invited me to come and run a retreat for them. And the Reground and Reignite, it's combining some of the things I just talked about with around my own experience when I have been on retreat with them, and bringing in some more focused time through workshops and one-to-one coaching to help people uncover what we've been talking about, their values, purpose, what's important, looking back over the last year or so to really get a sense of where they are now in order to then figure out what's important going forward. So I think with retreats, we often think of just blissing out and having lovely massages and doing some yoga and chilling out by the pool. And it's all that. And it's really spending some time on you to focus on what's important.
I really want to come. Do you know what I really want? I want a retreat with all of that and art and singing. Could you arrange one of those?
Well,
and I'll come and bring some friends.
We know some people, don't we? That we could bring in.
We could. I've got the art teacher. Who do we know that sings?
Yeah.
I sing. Hang on a
well,
minute.
Bring it, Jules. Bring it.
No, but honestly, I would absolutely love to find a retreat with yoga, healing, all the stuff that you've been talking about, singing and artwork. amazing.
And they're definitely out there for sure. I think even the whole business of retreats has really evolved in the past 5 to 10 years as well. It was very much about taking time out and getting away from it all. And now there's a term actually that I learned recently called time in, an author, and there's an entrepreneur called Mickey Agrawal, and she talks about taking time in as opposed to time out. And time in is like taking time to go inwards and really excavate the soul and uncover what's important and what keeps you feeling alive and present and fulfilled. So rather than just getting away from it all and taking a breather, Reground and Reignite is a more active chance or time for self-discovery as well.
It just sounds fantastic. How many days is it running for?
It's 6 nights, 7 days.
Oh, how cool. And do you want to just tell us the dates and how people, if they're interested in joining it, can find about it?
So it starts on August 30th and finishes on September 5th. For those of you, if you're in Hong Kong, it starts at 5 o'clock on the 30th. So there's normally a flight that gets you into Bali about 3 o'clock. So it's a nice time to arrive. Yeah. And you can find out more about it on my website on nataliegoni.com or go straight to One World Retreats and find more and register
great.
there as
well.
well.
And I'll have all these links in my show notes as well.
Awesome.
So people can just look at the show notes to find the information. I've looked at retreats before and it's kind of like, oh, I don't know what they're going to be like. Like, I'd love to come with you because I know it would be fantastic. Do you know what I mean? Going with somebody that you know and that you know is going to do an amazing job. It just gives you the confidence to spend that money and take that time to go and do it. I would definitely do one of these retreats if it was in the school holidays, for sure.
Well, I think what you said actually is really important. You could Google Bali retreat and you'd have hundreds come up.
I've done it before. I've thought of going. And then I'm just like, well, I don't want to do yoga. I mean, I love yoga, but I can't do it for 6 hours a day. Do you know what I mean? Like 1 or 2 hours a day is enough for me. And maybe not even every day. I need other things. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And I want to do that self-development work. I want to go in and look at what drives me and my values and how I can be a better person and the changes I need to make to be less anxious or stressed and all that kind of thing, you know?
If you know the teacher or the retreat leader, I think that's important because you get a sense for the experience and how you're going to be held.
Definitely.
And I will plug again for One World Retreats because literally that's all that they do. And Claude, actually, the owner, his background is hospitality. So they come less from a kind of yoga perspective and more from a hospitality perspective. So you arrive and you don't have to think about getting anywhere or doing anything as soon as you arrive.
Brilliant. I'm going off to Mexico in the summer to Guadalajara.
Nice.
And I am going to look for workshops like yoga, self-development, some art, some cooking. Do you know what I mean? Like I won't be on a retreat, but I'm going to find different things that I can go and do each day. But it'd be lovely to be settled somewhere and really, really involved for the whole time.
And as often going somewhere and just kind of dipping in and out of some of these experiences is really lovely. And that's also really nice to do as well. And going on a retreat there's something about having everything planned for you and just showing up and also journeying with the same group of people as well can be really quite special.
How many people are typically on a retreat or how many will be on this one?
Probably around 12, roughly.
And that's a good number, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a nice number.
And I guess rest is a factor in retreat as well. And why do you think it's important for us to rest?
Throw that question back to you. Like, do you rest? Is it something that's part of your
No,
life?
Not as much as I should. And I find if I do rest, it really does revitalize and it really does make me feel more grounded and less stressed. It's interesting with this working at home thing that we're doing at the moment because of the virus. Like I'm cutting myself off at 6 o'clock as much as I can so I can just chill and rest. But I think rest is important because we take time for reflection and rejuvenation and just de-stressing is huge. Like life can be pretty stressful if you've got a lot going on. So I think that's why rest is important. But I think you'd get another level of rest at a retreat that you're offering. Does that make sense? Where it really is about reflection and rejuvenation and not tokenistic rest where you're watching television.
Yeah, you're binging on Netflix.
That's my resting or podcasts.
Yeah.
So I'm not really doing it properly.
And it's interesting, rest means different things for different people. And how I would probably define it is rest is allowing your nervous system to rest. And why many of us are not rested or feel rested is because many of the things that we do to rest is actually quite stimulating on the nervous system. So whether that be watching movies or something on Netflix, or having a few glasses of wine, or
walking,
it depends on where
environment.
You're
walking. Yes, if
where
you're out
working.
in nature, it's going to be more restful than walking down the street.
Even hanging out with friends, there are some social settings that feel very restful and calming on the nervous system, and there are some that are not.
Absolutely.
And often, because people want connection, we will kind of substitute that really restful experience for connection, but it's quite stimulating. And so what's really important for people is to really understand for you what calms your nervous system and what allows your nervous system to rest, because the society that we live in is very activated, whether it be sounds, visual. I mean, especially in Hong Kong, right? Especially if you live on the island, it's noisy and dense, and there's a lot of smells going on in any city. So it's very activating. So rest for me is allowing the nervous system to rest.
That's really good. I love that. I'm going to take that away from this and think about that and think about how I can do more of that, because I need that, because I don't sleep well, and I'm sure it's linked.
Even scrolling on the phone, right?
I know, and I tell my kids all the time, and then I'm on the phone.
Right.
Yeah. And because of my podcast and everything, I use it all for promotion and blah, blah, blah. And it'd be nice to step away from it all for sure.
Yeah.
On your website, you talk about nourishment. What do you mean by that? Because initially I'm thinking, nourishing food, but there's many ways that we can nourish ourselves. Tell me more about that.
We could kind of look at nourishment. If I take the Ayurvedic perspective, the Ayurvedic view is that we get nourishment not from just our mouths through food, but through our eyes, our ears, all of our senses. And so nourishment are the things that, I guess, give you energy and replenish you and or calm your nervous system through all the different channels. So it can be things like learning something new, playing a musical instrument, going to an art gallery. And if you love art and taking in different kinds of art, it's much broader than food. And so it's kind of feeling into the things that make you feel at ease, alive, peaceful. It's interesting. I often say that pleasure and nourishment can often get conflated. And some of the things that are pleasurable for us are not actually nourishing.
Like drinking a lot.
Eating all the delicious things that we like to eat. Exactly.
Yeah, that's so true.
Certain types of relationships and, things that we find pleasurable are not always nourishing, and things that are nourishing are not always pleasurable.
Give me an example. Like not eating sugar.
Right. Or
it's good for you not to eat sugar, but it's not that pleasurable to not eat sugar.
Or like even things like drinking water. Sometimes you're a bit like, oh God, you have to drink more water.
I'm going to do that now.
I'm going to do that in a minute. So something that comes to mind as well, and this again is a food analogy, but in eating bitter foods, like things that kind of make us go, that are actually really good for us, but they're not particularly pleasurable. And when I say bitter foods, I mean maybe bitter vegetables or things that don't always taste really good.
And tasteless things as well. If somebody feels that they are a bit purposeless and they don't really have a focus or a direction in their life, how can they turn that around and find their life's purpose? That's a big question.
That's a huge question.
Yeah, but you can answer it.
Wow. I don't know if I can. I mean,
I think you can.
It's a huge question because it's so different for different people. And I think that words like purpose and meaning are actually kind of more friendly ways of talking about the soul.
Oh, I like that a lot. Tapping into your soul's purpose.
Or what is
intrinsically you.
Yeah. What makes you whole.
Happy. Yeah, or whole.
Yeah. Happy can be very subjective. And I think the goal of being happy is a little bit of a futile because we can be happy momentarily, but it's not necessarily a feeling that we can sustain all the time. So whole, I think, is what I prefer to as an intention or a goal, I guess. And that again is the soul is quite an abstract kind of concept. I think it is about this concept of wholeness. And many of us don't feel very whole. We're either holding back parts of ourselves that we judge as not likable or not lovable or shameful, or we are even holding back the things that make us shine and brilliant and big and expansive.
Fear of failure, so you don't step outside your comfort zone or take risks.
Yeah. I think it's knowing what feels purposeful for us at a certain point in our life, because purpose, I think, also changes or can change over your course of your life. You know, your purpose at 35 will be different potentially to your purpose at 65. So I think it's more of an exploration of wholeness.
I think that's a really, really good way to sum it up. See, I knew you could do it.
Wow.
Brilliant. That was great. Yeah, it's like testing you. How important is it that we have a mind, body, and spirit connection, and that we really think about it, and that we have that sort of spiritual awareness?
Well, I think it comes back to this concept of wholeness. And a lot of the work that I do now, and I've been really delving deeply into for my own journey and my practice as well over the last couple of years, is the concept and the practice of embodiment. And, you know, when you said, do we really need to think about it and kind of connect those things? And often that's where we get a bit stuck, as we think about it, right? How do I be connected, mind, body, and spirit? You know,
Instead of just being.
But that's hard to do, right? It's easy said, but hard to do. And so the practice of coming into our bodies and feeling what it feels like to be in our body. And you can start that kind of practice by noticing sensation more often. So sensation, I mean things like, oh, I feel tense, I feel hot, I feel heavy, I feel floaty, whatever it might be. It starts a practice of being more in our body. And that for me is really key to this kind of more holistic connection of self.
Meditating can help with that as well, can't it? To get that connection, to take that time to sit in who you are and how you feel.
Yeah, I mean, there's many different types of meditation, and it kind of depends on what meditation you do. I mean, I personally found meditation and find meditation valuable because it helped me understand the nature of my mind. It helped me understand that my mind shouldn't always be listened to, you know, shouldn't always be in the driving seat, and just understand the kind of fluctuations and the busyness of it. But you can expand on that, and you can do meditations that bring you into your body. And so, yeah, meditation in its many different forms, I would say.
I think that's something that I was actually just my osteopath, and he's like, you need to meditate. And it's like, okay, all right.
Did he give you any guidance on what kind of meditation or where to start?
No, but I have a bit of an idea because I've done it before and I've looked into it a bit. So I know I've done that mindfulness course. So I think I know how I can do it. I struggle with it. I don't find it easy, but that's because I think I'm so busy and I don't really allow myself the time to switch off. I'm always thinking of the next thing that I have to do and get done and tick off my list. Like I make lists every day and tick off everything that I'm doing.
And do you find that you do that in meditation?
I find that I can't quiet my mind, but it was really helpful to know that you don't have to have a completely blank mind in meditation. That was really helpful for me. I think I find guided meditations very, very helpful because I'm able to focus on how I'm being guided. So I think that works for me better than leaving me to my own devices. So I think that's definitely something that I should try. I think in a way I get that through listening to podcasts in bed at night and just listening to the story or whatever's being told to me. So I almost feel like that's a form of meditation. So it's interesting, and it's something that I need to work on because I definitely need to sort out my sleep. Like my sleep is just rubbish, but never mind. Go on, what are you going to say?
I mean, there's a couple of things there. One, just in terms of your sleep, there's the ramp up or the ramp down to sleep, right? So if you're not doing things that calm your nervous system or activate your nervous system, in the ramp down to sleep, then it's going to be difficult to sleep. And there's also many other layers why someone finds it difficult to sleep. But I also wanted to add that with meditation, if you are someone that has a very active mind and finds it difficult to be still in body, or, I must have a calm mind, movement meditation can actually be really resourcing.
Like walking meditation?
So I have a meditation on my website, a whole body grounding meditation, which is like guides you through a body scan to really help you connect.
I love body scans.
Yeah. And so it's a different way of allowing your mind to calm or soften a little bit.
Oh, I'm going to try that.
And bring you into your body.
Cool. Thank you. I really am going to give that a try tonight. I've definitely moved away from my phone to reading books, and that's helped a lot. Having your phone at night is not a good idea. Natalie, what do you hope that your guests will leave your retreat with, or walk away from your retreat feeling or having achieved?
I think the main thing is a deeper connection to self. We often talk about feeling balanced or feeling centered or feeling grounded, all these different words that really mean the same thing. And often we don't know what that feels like. Life is so fast and so full that we don't know what it feels like in the body and the mind to feel my version or your version of feeling centered and connected to self. And so it's giving people the opportunity to know what that feels like for them so that they can come back to that feeling whenever they want to.
That's a really good point. Being able to come back to that feeling, to relive that experience and have the tools to do that. That's important, isn't it?
Exactly. And that's what people will take away is the tools on how to do that for them.
That's so cool.
Because the reality is daily life, we will get pulled away from our center. We will get pulled away from our connection to self. We just do. It's the life that we live. We're busy. We have many people wanting our time and our attention. And so we need to know how we get back to that place and who we are from the inside out.
Perfect. Natalie, to finish up, what are your top tips for self-care for people who are listening? What can people do just from listening to this podcast and trying to make a difference for their well-being?
I would probably say two things. One is to know your base camp. And by base camp, I mean, what are the things that you know that you absolutely need in your life to feel okay, to feel rested, to feel steady? So list out the things that you know are really important to you. So it might be getting to bed by 10:30. It might be always having a nourishing book to read that nourishes your intellect, your soul, whatever. Eating good food, drinking so-and-so amount of water, moving every day, doing 5 deep breaths in the morning, spending time with friends, having dinner with the family once a week. Whatever it is that you know that if they are not present, you're going to be off kilter. I always make a kind of list of my base camp, and I can't do those things all the time. But I know that if I'm not doing 3 or 4, I don't feel good.
That's really good advice. And I'm literally going to go home and do that. That's a really, really good idea because I've lost some things that I just had naturally because I'm working from home all the time now, like movement. I'm not going out of the house some days because I'm just working all day and then I watch TV and then I go to bed. Whereas normally I'm running around the school and up and down to the ferry and all of that. So that's a big thing. And I think that I could make a change for the better by just going for a 20-minute walk.
Yeah, or just doing some stretches or just dancing to some music at home. Or
there's lots of possibilities, isn't there?
Yeah.
And it's so interesting because I just sent an email with a lot of these tips to my year 13s today and sent them a little mandala thing and then a little 20-minute yoga video and then a little funky dance little video that they could do if they wanted to work on their well-being. Yet I don't follow the same advice. So interesting, isn't it? We can advise others, but we don't then follow our own advice.
I know. And this is the difference between mind and body. We can do all these from the mind very well. We can tell other people what to do. We can give advice. We can say, I really need to do this. But it's the embodiment, it's the doing it that is where the value comes from.
So listeners out there, do it. Don't just think about it, just do it. Thank you, Nike, for that little So, Natalie, if people want to reach you, find your retreat information, find your website, how can they do that?
So you can find my website is nataliegoni.com, so just my name. You can find me on Instagram under Natalie Goni, LinkedIn, Natalie Goni. I think that's it.
That's great. Yeah, that's enough. And they'll be in the show notes as well. So thank you so much for coming to talk to me today. It's been so enriching and inspirational, and just as I knew it would, actually. I'm not surprised that it's been so wonderful. So thanks so much for coming to talk to me today. For my listeners out there, if this is something that you think your friends and family would enjoy, please can you share this podcast with them? If you could go to iTunes to rate and review me, that would be fantastic. It'll help move me up the iTunes charts. I'm going to ask Natalie 4 secret questions, which I'm going to put on my Patreon page. So for as little as $1 a month, that's 8 Hong Kong dollars a month, you can hear Natalie's answers to the 4 secret questions. Please go to patreon.com/Hong Kong Confidential and sign up to sponsor my podcast and hear all the secret questions from all my guests. They're really fascinating. So thanks so much, Natalie, and we'll see you on Patreon in a sec.
Thanks, Jules.
Hi, Confidants. I want to tell you about my Patreon page. I've joined Patreon in the hope of getting sponsorship for my Hong Kong Confidential podcast. Patreon is a great way for my listeners to get on board and sponsor me with monthly payments, and that goes towards my production costs and rewards for my members. If you're interested in checking out my Patreon page, please go to patreon.com and search up Jules Hannaford or Hong Kong Confidential. I would really appreciate you visiting my page. So that brings us to the end of another Hong Kong Confidential podcast. I'm Jules Hannaford. Thanks for joining me, and I hope you'll be with me again next week. If you enjoyed today's podcast, please can you go to iTunes to rate and review it. I would really appreciate your feedback. You can email me at jules@hongkongconfidential.net, and you can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Hong Kong Confidential. If you'd like to hit me up on Twitter, it's at Jules Hannaford. I would love to hear from you.
Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to AuscastNetwork.com for details.